Hi, Heidi.
Hi, Adrian.
How's it going?
All right. How are you doing?
I'm having a Wednesday, Synchronous Wednesday.
Oh, with your kids.
Yeah.
How old are they?
My son is 9. He's in 3rd grade. My daughter is 6. She's in 1st.
Oh, so will they be going back to school all the time soon or?
April 5. God help me.
Yeah, I bet it's so much. It's so much. And yeah, I don't know how elementary school teachers do it, and I don't know how elementary parents do it. So
Yeah, it's
my
like,
hat goes off to you.
I gotta tell you, when I hear about people who have somehow made it through this without their life being completely turned upside down, I have to turn around and walk away and be like,
Yeah, yeah, it's rough.
I can't, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know how to access common ground.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's when you just practice your oh, I don't know what you practice, but yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
Breath work.
yeah, there you go.
Breathing.
Hi,
Okay,
Dan.
I'm gonna fix this.
Hello.
Hi, Dave.
Okay. Hi, Dave. Here we go. Hold on. Let me mute myself.
I also don't know if people, so I was in contact with Val Gilman about that meeting tomorrow and just said, hey, I'm gonna come and uh there's a link, but the link isn't live on the invite. So I don't know if people want that, if they'd like to, if they want to contribute to that. You don't have to be a Lanesville resident to give your 2 cents. It's really just a Gloucester survey about quarries and management. So even though the meeting is tomorrow and they'll be reflecting on data from that. Hi, Mark. They're collecting data until March 31st. So you don't have, I just thought I would toss that. If I send you a link, it doesn't have to be filled out ever, but it's just another chance to contribute to issues of open space and recreation. Hi, Mark.
Hello. That Mark.
Okay, great. All right.
Important Mark.
Hold on.
So do we have a quorum? It looks like we do.
We do. We are only missing Noelle right now.
Awesome. So I'll go ahead and read our statement. Welcome. My name is Heidi Wakeman, and this is a special meeting of the Open Space and Recreation Committee. Consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 25 people, this meeting will be conducted by remote participation to the greatest extent possible. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting in real time. Persons who wish to do so are invited to view the meeting at the following web address, URL. In the event that a live transmission proves unworkable for any reason, an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of this meeting will be made available on the city's website as soon as possible. And I would like to do a roll call to list who's here. Member Morris.
Present.
Member Poulin.
Here.
Member Sargent. Member Wakeman, myself, present. And we also have in attendance Adrian Lennon and Mark Rassicott. Okay. So thanks everybody for coming for this short meeting or this impromptu meeting. And I know that many of you had some feedback about the questions. So I know that the goal of today's meeting is to talk about the first survey. Oh, sorry about that. To talk about the first survey, the first part of the survey. So
You want to start? Okay, so
Yeah.
here, I'll take it.
Yep, great.
So just as a matter of discussion in business, it's the only item on the agenda other than the roll call.
Okay.
We were provided by MAPC the Gloucester Open Space Recreation Plan Virtual Forum #1 sample questionnaire. And just because I had referenced this before, I'll sort of say it again. I know I communicated this in the email. This is the first of 2 questionnaires looking for that high-level conversation and interaction with the public about open space in the city of Gloucester, and trying to kind of get a sense for where we should focus the direction of the second forum questions. So I can read off the questions if you like, and if you want to just hold up your hand, if you have comments on it, we can discuss them question by question. And then at the end, if there are some things that are missing that we want to try to add, or after reviewing the entire thing, we want to make some changes, we can do that. How does that sound?
That seems okay with me. I know people had specific suggestions, and also Mark came back with some recommendations too. The goal is to really just get the first section of these survey questions tightened up and then ready for that.
That's great.
So Dan and Mark and Dave, do you have any input about that, or is that format work for you to go through question by question? Yeah, Dan?
You're
Mute,
muted.
unmute.
Oh, you're
Unmute.
muted.
Okay. So I'm happy to proceed that way, though it seems to give a presumption that this is what we're working from. You know, that this gives this document some authority that it doesn't have. I mean, we've never discussed this before. We didn't develop it. It is a starting point, but I think we should feel free to pick it apart completely if needed.
Sure, and you can certainly do
needed.
that.
Yeah, use it
and
if
send it
needed,
back.
but just it shouldn't be a presumption of being the thing until we really have beat it up.
Yeah, and I will say that with the caveat that, and maybe I can upload this to the drive for you all to see. The open space and recreation plan process has a very robust workbook attached to it that is produced by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that you can review. And so a lot of this stuff comes out of that workbook. It's like, this is where everybody starts. They start with this set of questions, and then they evolve, the project evolves for more specificity towards the community. But the workbook kind of identifies for you what each of the specific products are that you have to produce to submit to the Commonwealth for the plan. And maybe it helps to see that, so you have a kind of a grasp of what the scope is, right? Okay. Do you want to walk through the questions? Does that sound good? Okay. So what's the most effective way to find out Gloucester events, recreation opportunities, and park programs? Select all that apply. Mail, Gloucester Parks and Recreation Department website. Word of mouth, other organizations, TV, radio, social media, newspaper, flyers, posters, or others. Please specify and include a write-in box. Are there other? Go ahead, Mark.
I think that Dan sent in a very good comment on this, which was that maybe we don't want to start with this one, and that this could be towards the end in the demographic section.
Mhm.
Dan, I think that was very perceptive of you. And, we probably should start the questionnaire with more direct questions related to the open space.
Okay, so we can pull it out of order, figure that out. I'm gonna just number them so that we can think about where we're gonna put question number 1. Do you feel there are adequate parks and usable green space within walking, biking distance from your home? Yes, no, uncertain, or do not use parks and recreation facilities? Go ahead, Mark.
I had a comment on that one, just about making it a little bit more open-ended,
Mhm.
not limiting the choices to bike or ride, or maybe how you access the open spaces, unless the intent was nearby enough to walk or bike. I mean, I guess without knowing. But go ahead, Mark.
So yes, you're absolutely on the money there. The intent was to try to determine close proximity of parks and open space to folks who either choose to walk there or perhaps have to walk there because they're a kid and they don't have a car. They can only access it by bike or by foot. But again, on this question, I think that Noel had a very good question related to it. And, it conflated both the active recreation parks and the more passive conservation land uses. And so my recommendation would be that we split it into 2 questions. The first of which would be something to the effect, do you feel there are adequate active recreational parks and facilities within walking or biking distance from your home? And then the second being, do you feel there are adequate woodlands / conservation areas for walking or other activities within walking / biking distance from your home? Again, perceptive on Noel's part to distinguish those 2. And this also removes the question of the usable open space that Noel had a question on. And just so everybody's clear on that, that was in there because in several occasions, we've come across things that were officially designated as open space, but not really very usable as open space. For instance, I think it was the Everett Open Space and Recreation Plan, the center of the Revere Beach Parkway is technically open space, and it's a large piece of green space that runs through town, but not really very usable for people because it's got 2 lanes of fast traffic on both sides of it. So we would determine that to be not usable open space from the standpoint of people recreating on it or relaxing on it. And sometimes people throw cemeteries in there as well, although during COVID, my wife and I have done a lot of walking in our local cemeteries and have gotten to know a lot of the local history from that. So does splitting that question work for you, Mark, and others?
It certainly does, right? At least that piece of it, right? Now in a different construct doesn't limit people to just saying walk or ride. It sort of puts it in more perspective that way.
I see Dave has his hand raised. Do you want to make a comment, Dave?
Unmute. Mute.
Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, this is a small enough group that I don't think anybody needs to shut their mic off. Right.
Mark, thank you for acknowledging that we should, be considering the inner city. I'm wondering if the next question, because we just asked them, if it was accessible to them, if the next question should be, where do you live? Because now there's a nexus.
Where do you live?
I think that could work really well. I'm talking to our, I sent an email this afternoon to our community engagement specialist folks to ask them how best to arrange this. And they said that they they could link questions. And so it does make sense that this question on where they live by ward might be the appropriate next question.
Thank you.
I wonder if we could somehow inquire about in what ways it's inadequate. We might have markedly different metrics for adequacy. It might be in terms of how far away it is. It might be in terms of how large the park or green space is. It could be whether or not there are swing sets. I mean, people are going to, it seems to me people will approach the notion of adequate in different ways. And so does MAPC have a way of teasing that out?
I would say that is definitely something we want to do. That is generally in the second of the
Okay.
surveys. And I can forward, we haven't obviously done the second survey yet,
Right.
But I can forward to you all what was the initial material used in developing the Manchester by the Sea survey. And there are questions in there related to the adequacy of parks, what's missing from the parks, what don't you like about the parks that you're not visiting, that kind of thing is included in that second survey. If you want to do something in this, it's fine too. I just don't want to repeat things in the two surveys. We want to keep the questions different so that we're not getting some double counting. We could perhaps have an open-ended question that would be, let me just go down to this. I'm thinking that if the answer is no, for instance, in these two questions, do you feel there's adequate recreational parks within biking distance? Under no, if people click no, we could have a text box in which they could indicate why it was not adequate. Would that work?
Yes, I think that might be really informative. I mean, because you could get an answer that says, you know, not near me, or another one that says, you know, the swing set is broken. You know.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think that we can do that. Let me talk to Courtney about that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. With regards to the number of write-in boxes, though, on a small sample survey like this, it opens up that you're going to get a lot of different, you know, in terms of collecting and compiling all the information. Does that become a challenge the more write-ins you have at this level?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you know, it is also informative, and not everybody who answers the question will have a, you know, a reply in the text box, and this will help us, I think, perhaps to word some of the questions related on the second survey. If we're getting a significant number of people expressing concern about broken recreational equipment, that might be something that we may want to focus in a little bit more on the second survey.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
I had a couple more questions that this is prompting. About an hour ago, I sent a note out. I doubt anyone has had a chance to look at it, though. Mark Resco has. One of the things that I mentioned was definitions. Is it going to be clear to the respondent that exactly what open space means and includes when they're saying, you know, open space is adequate, inadequate, or I use it in these ways?
I think that if that's a concern, I think that we could probably defined it in one line in advance of the question. So we could say, active recreational park facilities. We could say these are the typical facilities of Parks and Recreation Department, ball fields, soccer fields, swing sets, et cetera. And then when talking about the conservation areas, we could define those as the more passive woodlands and give a description of that.
Okay. I would appreciate us giving some consideration to that, because sometimes we use open space as an inclusive term, including parks, playgrounds, cemeteries, beaches. Other times we say open spaces and beaches, or open spaces and parks. And it's suggestive that it's basically just woodlands, defined by, described by the term open spaces.
Sure. So the
And
question
so-
is, where would beaches fit, for instance? Yes, we should use we should cite examples.
Yeah, it just so that when two people from two different households are answering the question, they have a reasonably similar sense of what open space, the term open space describes.
Yep. Yeah, because as you know, some folks do define open space as anything that's green, that's not
Mhm.
necessarily even publicly owned. So we should make sure that we define this and note that it's publicly owned, or perhaps owned by a nonprofit organization whose goal is to maintain it for conservation purposes. So yes, let me work with Courtney on defining these before we ask people to answer the question.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, so now that looks like we're at number 3. How do you usually get to parks and open spaces in Gloucester? Walk, jog, bike, drive, or other, please specify in the write-in. Thoughts? No? Everybody feels good about that one? Okay. We'll keep it.
Yep.
What would encourage you or enable you to walk or bikes to parks? Write-in box. We're okay with that?
Well, we have to decide whether we mean parks or open space or something
Right.
else. And the previous one is specifically saying parks and open spaces. And so I think we as a committee need to know what we're getting at here.
It's like a style decision. Are we always going to call it parks and open spaces? Or always going to call it parks, beaches, and open spaces? Noel has something. Hold on, Noel. Hang on. You can unmute yourself. There's only a few of us. Go ahead.
I'm glad she's here.
Yep, Noel Mann has joined the meeting.
Great.
I'm so glad that we're calling attention to this. We used to be just the Open Space Committee. Recreation was added, and it's 2 different constituencies, 2 different parts of the city. We have to treat it as two groups.
So where would you put beaches, Noel? Where do beaches fit in?
Recreation.
I would
I mean, we
concur.
call it all open space because that's the way the inventory is set up. I mean, this problem with the inventory is going to come up in spades as well. Gloucester has so much area which is open space or recreation, and where you draw the line is important. And we've got to fudge it and at least make it clear that there are different constituencies and different concerns. I think Dan was pretty well spot on with the problem.
Okay, so
so
let's
in-
make a decision. How do you want to refer to it?
Well, I think a start is to define open space and actually saying or having two different parts, or maybe this comes later, of the questionnaire to the effect that, answer this if it's a concern to you, and if it's not, don't, because you know, some people aren't concerned with our, you know, woods and hiking and biking and all the rest of it, and they want basketball courts.
Mhm.
So they're too, it's fish and fowl.
Right. So in this particular case, the question is really about mobility and access. And so the question is related to,
Yeah,
you know, how folks get to either the parks or the open spaces or the conservation lands that they're interested in getting to. Because if a significant number of folks indicate that they walk or that they bike, then an element of the open space and recreation plan should be, you know, ensuring that there is adequate routes for folks to get to the major sites. And that gets to the next question, which is, you know, what would encourage you or enable you to walk or bike to the parks? Because again, those
Well,
are not only healthier ways to get
Um,
to parks or open spaces, but it also lowers the amount of parking that you need to have there for the folks who are using them.
well, perhaps we should introduce the Cada bus route that takes us. I mean, they have signage in the buses saying you can get off here and we'll pick you up somewhere else for a walk in the woods.
Well,
Well,
that's an excellent point. Should we add CADA as one of the elements?
I think so, yes.
Okay, excellent. I was wondering about that actually, and I had forgotten to put it in. So add
And-
CADA.
And I would just say, so just back to the semantics of what are we asking? So it's a style question and it's a clarity question. So maybe parks and open spaces, like we can use those terms. How do you usually get to parks and open spaces in Gloucester? What would encourage you to enable you to walk or bike to parks and open spaces? If this is that language seems clear for this, what we are doing now for this particular survey. And also, I think it's a larger issue of how do we define these spaces, or what is what, which is what. But for our task today, I would suggest that just keeping it parks and open spaces, because that's what we're collecting information on. And again, for you, Mark Rassicot, to say at the top, parks include,
Yes,
you know, da, 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 open
Yes.
spaces include, da, da, da,
Yep.
da. So then it's brief. It doesn't need to be a whole listing of all those things, but people understand it's not that. You know, the Grant Circle Rotary, that's probably not considered open space, but
No,
you know, you can't recreate there. So
right. But
Yeah.
there are a lot of private parcels that are broadly used by public
Yeah.
people.
so for consistency's sake, I think I heard that we're going to put beaches into recreation and parks and not into open spaces, correct?
Mhm.
I would think
Mm.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
So I think we're on the next question, Adrian, if you want to keep going.
Okay, so we're going to add CADA to question 3, CADA bus route.
Absolutely.
And we've settled on a style here. It's going to be
Yes,
park and open spaces.
yes.
All right. What is your favorite park or open space in Gloucester? For example, Dogtown Commons, Ravenswood Park, Good Harbor Beach. This will include photos from the parks tour and add visual interest, include a write-in box for the question. So it will have probably the full complement of, or I'd say actually probably the top 20, right? Points of interest for Gloucester, which is going to be Good Harbor Beach, Winger Chic Beach,
The Boulevard,
the
stage.
Boulevard, yeah,
Yep.
Sageport Park, the whatever you call the
Sure. Dogtown's in there and Ravenswood's in there, I'm sure.
Dogtown and Ravenswood and the Greenbelt property in West Gloucester.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's
I mean
Thompson Street.
Thompson Street, right? And also the high school, where the Dunfudgeon Bridge is, that is an open space. People walk a lot, actually. That
Stacy Boulevard.
Thank you, thank you. I suppose if you want to send, everybody wants to send theirs in, you know,
Yeah, do we
Well, you
limit
know-
it? Yeah, are we picking them?
you don't have to limit, just say everything you're like, okay, if you had a favorite,
Example,
if
right?
you
Yeah.
can think of example favorites, send them in and we'll add them. I mean, I can think of 10 off the top of my head. I'm sure if we thought about this for more than 4 minutes, we'd come up with 100, right?
Do you want to add the quarries?
Great question. And I
I
think
mean,
that,
it's endless. Yes, exactly.
yeah, right. The reservoirs, oh God, you know, like, I mean, that's all reservoir lands, right? Babson, Goose
I-
Cove.
Yeah, what would dog walkers do without Goose Cove Reservoir?
I know. Yeah, right. So,
Uh,
yeah, I
uh,
mean,
Those are publicly owned?
they are,
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, put them in there.
I mean, the amount of space that is in open space in Gloucester is enormous.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, so I'm just gonna say, if the question is, what is your favorite park or open space? Do we really need to have a list? Because people know what their favorite is.
Yes,
Well,
Yeah.
we do, and for data collection purpose, because if you leave everybody as a write-in, some
Okay.
people are going to write Good Harbor Beach. Some people are going to write GHB. Some people are going to write
I see,
Thompson
so,
Street.
okay,
Some people like me are going to write that Greenbelt property out
Got
in
it.
Gloucester.
yeah. So I guess I didn't understand the way this was formatted, so we'll have choices for people to click. So,
Yeah.
Well,
got
the-
it, okay,
the
and
idea-
then the other.
And
okay,
then we'll give them another.
got it,
yeah.
okay, I misunderstood that. So
Well-
it will include a write-in box, but it's not only a write-in box, it's,
Yeah.
okay,
Right.
sorry. I
It
misunderstood
was
that.
initially anticipated to be just a write-in box, but you are correct in stating that if it's not a write-in box, but rather a long list, then it's easier to catalog because
Yeah.
we're
Right,
getting
well-
less write-ins.
Right. I mean, the alternative is when we get this data back, you, Mark, and Courtney are going to have no idea what the difference is and what a nickname for a particular open space is. And then it's going to be back upon us to sort that out.
Yeah, okay.
So let's not put ourselves in that position.
Yeah.
Send your top 10. And between the 6 of us, we will have 30.
Okay,
How
and
about
are we
that?
sending those to you, Adrian?
Yeah,
or-
send them to me. Send them
Okay,
to me.
great.
Yeah. And then we'll leave an open option.
Great.
Okay, that's question 5. Question 6, in general, what makes a park valuable to you? Check your top 5. Note, this will include some photos from the parks tour and add visual interest. Beauty, for example, natural features, landscape views, places to connect with nature, cleanliness, easy to get to, safety, places to exercise or be active, quiet places and places to relax. Opportunities to socialize, be with family or friends, lots of diverse activities in the park. Other, please specify, include a write-in. Other thoughts?
Parking,
Yeah, cost,
Parking,
or, yeah,
cost.
Good access.
Yeah.
So yeah, it says easy to get to. And so
Yeah.
when you say access, Noel, are you thinking like ADA access?
No, I'm thinking principally of parking,
Okay,
because there are a lot of places that, people are parking along roads where they shouldn't be.
okay,
And again, we'll be consistent here with the parks and open space language put in here.
correct, yeah, park. What makes a park and or open space? Okay,
so we're adding parking and user fees or something,
parking, cost,
or user fees or something like that, or
sure,
is
we
it
can put
cost or use?
whatever you want.
yeah,
User
Just
fee, probably user fees is probably better, right? Or
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know.
What makes it
Can I
valuable-
make a suggestion?
Who's that? Oh, hello, Mayor.
It's the mayor.
Oh.
Hello.
Great survey, great things. I mean, I know Val did on Ward 4 and we have the Quarry one tomorrow. But I'm gonna tell you
Filter.
something. I love the idea that you're gonna name all these places because a lot of people don't even know what the names are. They just know where they are. and they really don't know if there's names. A lot of the reservoirs we're really not supposed to walk, but a lot of them that we mentioned, I'm telling you right now, I would ask one question. If we could make one of these favorite places handicapped accessible, which one would you choose?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yep.
So we can get a majority of that. Someone wants to take a child with a wheelchair, you can't go hiking. You know, if someone wants to do some trailing, you really can't. We're trying to do that at stage 4, but it's hard. So if we could really afford one, which one would we do that you think that it should be? We should ask that question so we know that we're going to get everyone, because you can't. So if we can make it, parking is great. These, if we can make just one of these favorite places handicap accessible, which one would you choose?
Great question.
So.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. And you guys are doing a great job. I love it already. I was really quiet because I'm enjoying this.
Okay. So parking, we want to call it user fees.
Yeah.
Okay. And I do think we should add ADA accessibility there, because if you are a person who is a user of a park or open space and you qualify some space as accessible, like for example, I push my mother in a wheelchair and these places are not necessarily ADA accessible, but I'm still able to access them with her. And so for me, it's ADA accessible, then I would include that. And I would say this, you know, and to the mayor's point, that's also an opportunity to make small changes to augment a location that could then make it significantly more accessible for somebody who is handicapped.
Yeah.
Okay, that put up some hands. Go ahead, go all around. Dan?
We're getting into some specific questions. When we're done with this one, I have a more general question that I would like to pose.
Okay. Dave, did you have something?
Thumbs up.
Oh, thumbs up. Okay, cool. Noel, did you have something?
Well, I thought there is an ADA accessible path at Greenbelt, Sandfields in East Gloucester.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so we'll take it from there. Now, question 7, right?
If I may.
Go ahead, Dan. Oh, yes, you're going back.
Before we get into they seem to be drilling in a little bit about how the city relates to it. I posed to my email again, I'm sorry that it came so late, that if we could have a general question that says, how important are open spaces and parks and beaches and to your quality of life in Gloucester, and or even to your identity as a citizen of Gloucester? Maybe separate questions, or maybe only one is needed. My thinking here is that the people who will complete this survey in general, I would imagine, would be pretty supportive of that answer. And it would give us as a committee, it would give the mayor, it would give members of the city council the opportunity to say 89% or whatever the percent is, found that this was very important to them. And I posed some language in the email. It could be extremely important, very important, important, meh, so as long as you're getting the first three categories, you sum those up. And if we're able to say that, 90% of the respondents said this was important or better to them, that seems to me a powerful thing to present to city council or to the mayor, particularly when we're getting into appropriations and, trying to acquire new lands or something like that.
Yeah,
Thanks
and
for
maybe
considering
that's a good question 1.
Yes.
Right, we'll
Yes,
start with
Excellent
question 1.
number 1.
Yeah.
How important is it? And then we can go into, do you have adequate parks and open spaces available to you? And then how do you usually get there? And then kind of unraveling more into the user experience that way. How does that sound? And then when and maybe, yeah, okay. So we'll address question 1, current question 1 afterwards.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so next one, this is now going to be question 7. As Gloucester invests in its parks system, what should it prioritize? Rank, drop and drag prioritization. Acquire land for conservation purposes, for example, wildlife habitat and water supply protection. Acquire land for recreational purposes, for example, playgrounds, ball fields, and boating. Acquire land for parks and facilities in areas that lack parkland. Maintain existing parks and facilities. Improve access to parks and facilities through trails, sidewalks, bike lanes, safer crossings. Improve existing parks and facilities through new playgrounds, athletic fields, paving, trees, buildings. Add or enhance programs at parks and facilities, for example, group exercise, arts and culture, outdoor education, concerts, markets, concessions, and rentals. Other, please comment and write-in box. That one's pretty robust. Go ahead, Dave.
I would suggest that under the first bullet where it says acquire land for conservation purposes, example, that we might want to think about putting coastal resiliency included, because I can imagine that at some point there may be opportunities to purchase land for river walks or other things that would translate into open space usability.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because the function of this plan is to tie in places where we can, the function of the plan is to have as large a scope of reference as possible, so that in future efforts in conservation and planning, and also in the DPW to apply for grant funds, we're able to point back at this plan and say, we talked about coastal resiliency here. That was a priority referenced in the open space plan. We really need the funds, and it's supported by this effort. And we want to be able to call that out as something that we're succeeding on when the time comes to really review the plan 7 years from now. So that's a really good point. And as you're thinking through, it's not necessarily something we have to make embedded into the questionnaires to the public, but when we're talking about drafting the plan, that's the kind of stuff we really want to be making sure we're incorporating, because we need that so that we can win those grants.
And Greenbelt has prepared maps to accomplish that.
Yeah, they have produced some pretty good maps for us. Yep.
Hey, Adrian, a quick question for you. In your work, does the question about access to waterfront come up very much? And is that something that would be, a Gloucester investment? Is it something people care about? And is it something Gloucester could invest to improve?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is actually my absolute favorite subject. I love it more than anything else. What you're asking about is something called the Public Waterfront Act. It's called Chapter 91. And it actually is older than the Massachusetts Bay Colony, and is one of the institutional laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And it's actually why Massachusetts is a Commonwealth, because of the language in Chapter 91, which states that no person, entity, or private organization is able to own the tide lands of the Commonwealth. So any of the land between mean high water and mean low water is considered tide lands. And any person can access the tide lands to fish, fowl, or navigate at any time. And the reason that this was incorporated as part of the founding articles of Massachusetts Bay Colony is because at that time, access to the waterfront was the difference between life and death. Okay, if people didn't have the ability to clam or go fishing or land a boat, then they were almost definitely not going to survive in the upland areas in the Commonwealth. And so this actually is one of the oldest and best written and longest standing matters of environmental justice that exists in the United States of America, and potentially in the world. It is actually as old as Rome. But yes, it most certainly does come into play with my work. Every time there is a private property, a marina, or a private owner who attempts to encroach upon the tidelands, and that is defined, you like this, Dave, right? You're doing this. And that is defined by often the installation of a pier supported structure, what they're doing is they're inhibiting the ability for the public to pass and repass over the tidelands if they are putting a pier supported structure in there. And in so doing, they have to get the permission from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts through Chapter 91, the DEP Waterways Program and filing, to do that, to have this temporary access to restrict the access of the public by having their own private way back and forth across the tideland. And to maintain that licensure, so they have to maintain that structure, or it will be considered a nuisance and be removed. So all of those people also have to file before me and Dave to get permission to build their pier supported structure. And they have to have the permission to build the pier supported structure before they're even allowed to apply to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to own it and to own that, or actually it's a lease, to lease the ability to restrict the access of the public across the flowed tidelands. So it does come up everywhere, but I don't think it's subject, or I would not consider it subject to the discussion of parks and open spaces, because this is very well protected by the Commonwealth and of course institutional to the environmental management in the Commonwealth in general.
Okay. All right. Thank you for all of
Sorry,
that.
that's a big diatribe, but I do happen to love that one.
Yeah.
But how about access? So Adrian, how about access to the title, to get to the title
Right.
area first?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. In fact, you can own to Mean High. Yeah, that's Coffin's Beach. That's how Coffin's Beach works, is that it's every single parcel is right next to each other. And all of those, because Coffin's was actually a farm, but owned by a man named Coffin. I don't even know why I'm saying this. I should let Dave tell this story because he knows it better than I do, but at least he knows that I work here, right? Anyway, and he did own up to the Mean High. And when the family subdivided the property, this was like in the 40s and 50s, and started to separate it off, that's the Bungalow Road, Bale Lane, all those, they actually have associations.
Oh.
And those associations own to the Mean High. And so actually crossing the beach, Coffin's Beach there, you're trespassing on private property, and they can tell you to leave. The association can tell you to leave. So great question. And yes, people can absolutely own up to Mean High and in that way restrict access, but they cannot restrict access from the water. So
Okay.
anybody can land a boat in the tidelands of the Commonwealth.
Okay.
But we're like really digressing here. We're going into a place we don't need to go.
Okay.
Happy to have this conversation, another time.
There was a
Anyway.
campaign by I think it was CZMA a few years ago, where they were trying to map and identify and publicize public access points to water. And
Yep.
they published a booklet and that was really actually very handy. And there was this call to arms associated with it, where said that if you see encroachments upon this, or otherwise people shutting it down, or asserting their personal ownership of these spaces, then you need to contact
That's
them.
how, and
So
yeah,
anyway, we're off subject, but I was just wondering if that's if that's not relevant here, or if it's got its own vehicle for being addressed, then we don't need to address it here.
right.
So,
But you know what,
okay.
you bring that up, and that's actually a really good point, is to mention as part of open space parks, or parks, what are we calling it? Parks and open space. As part of parks and open space is to have a discussion around public landings. Because public landings are fairly well documented. I mean, they're available on AppGeo. You can pull up the layer. If you're a citizen, you actually can just view the GIS and pull up the public landings, and it will mark all of them in the city. But there are questions about some landings and whether or not they are public or if they are private, and how much people should have access to it. So that Mark Holland, you went in the right direction there. Dan, thanks for closing the loop. I would not have thought about that otherwise, but we should explore that in the plan, landings.
We will include, I have an inventory of anyway, that's later.
Okay.
Thank you.
So if I could just stay on this one topic for just a second longer, because I do think it's critically important, because there are municipalities that try to focus on acquiring rights of way over the upland to enable folks to better access the public tidelands.
Okay.
And so the question would be, is that something you want to include in this list of priorities that folks may want to evaluate?
Yeah, sure. So question 7, acquire land for public access to flow tidelands or
Yes.
for landings, or for example, public landings.
Acquire
I'd say tidelands.
Yeah.
yeah, land or easement or right of way, or I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be buying the property, but
Yeah, wouldn't it just be improving access? I
In
mean,
some cases, you may have to acquire a parcel
okay,
or a strip that you could legally let folks walk down in order
Okay.
to acquire, in order to access the public.
I'll give you an example and I'm not putting anyone, you go on Shore Road in Magnolia. There's one piece of land that actually belongs to the city. We took it over tax, whatever. And people want to buy it because they don't want people to go there. And even though you have access, so we think we have access to low tide, tidal land, you don't, because you have to get through someone's property to get there unless you have a boat. And then you better hurry up and get off, because when it's high tide or low tide, you have to run. And if you don't swim, you're staying out there. And so it's difficult. So some areas that the city does own or we have, people don't want people there. They're trying to purchase it and they say, oh no, we'll let people fish. We just wanted to be part of our land. And that's so important, because if you look, we all thought the back shore was ours. Okay. And then we found out that, it's not. And it's very important that if there is some places that we could acquire so we can actually keep it and be able to enjoy it, that's something, because I believe in open space, believe it or not. I know a lot of you think, oh, well, no, half of the stuff that's happening, no. And the same thing that's happening on I-4C2, that property in front where the lobstermen, and Dave can help me with the lobstermen, use as a wharf, that is their access. Okay, so when people wanted to buy I-4C2 years ago or do something, they wanted to take over that access. Well, how are they going to get to their boats to go on the lobster boats? How are they going to be able to work on the boats, or if you get out there, they can't. You have to be very careful when people say, oh, don't worry, you have access. So I don't know if you want to include it in this survey, but it would be very helpful for me to understand what people really want. Do we want access? Do we want to buy? If we're going to buy things, shouldn't we buy things that it's going to just stay deeded and open to the public for us, for everyone to enjoy? And know that, someone's not going to build something on it, because just because you can doesn't mean you should. That's my opinion. But thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, that was question 7. Dave, go ahead.
Dovetailing with what Mark said about particularly access to areas that you might think about, and dovetailing into what the mayor said, access to Essex Bay is particularly difficult and is just done through courtesy or through a agreement with our neighboring community, Essex. So this could be critically important.
Okay, thanks.
But I love you all. I have to leave because I have to go say goodbye to Phil Carmen from the Addison Gilbert Hospital. He's retiring, but I just love you all. Thank you. I don't even have to stay on here because you guys are like one on top of the other. And it's like, oh yes, Dave's there. Oh yes. Noelle says she has it and this one has it. It's great. So thank you so much. I know I'm going to be, I believe I'm looking very closely. I don't know if you know him, Liam, who wants to join the open space too, because we have a position.
great.
And he's young and he's diverse and you know what? And I just got to do that. So I'm going to make sure that, you guys have all the help you can. So thank you so much again. And please be safe.
Great.
Did you all
Perfect.
get vaccinated? Did you all
Yeah.
get vaccinated?
Yes.
No.
Okay, if those who want to, I'm sorry, those who want
Halfway
to.
there.
Okay, and no, all right. And
Those
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 who
are still
are
young.
waiting for the JJ, let
Yes.
me know, because we'll put you on a waiting list, because I'm one of the COVID angels. I volunteer at night and midnight and 3 a.m, and we give people, so if someone wants just the one and done, let me know, we'll put you on the list. Other than that, Adrian, be careful. We need you vaccinated. You've got children and everything else. If you want to, contact me. Everyone have a wonderful day.
I
Thank you.
will too.
Mayor, before you go, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I want to show you something. Hold on.
Mhm.
I'm going to screen share. This is coming at you. Let me share my screen. Do you see this right here? City of Gloucester Open Space Plan and Recreation Plan.
Yes,
update.
yes.
So this was produced by MAPC, and they just sent it over to us a few days ago. I'm going to be circulating this far and wide, not only to committee members, but also to you and everyone in your office and everybody on Conservation Commission. This is to be posted everywhere.
Okay,
And we're trying to encourage people to attend this live presentation wherein we're going to begin this discussion with the public about open space. It's Monday, April 26th, 5 to 5:45. It is going to be on Zoom. It's going to be coordinated and generally hosted by MAPC and our planners who are working with us on this project who are there. Mark Rassicott is here and Courtney Lewis is working with him as well. And what we're working on right now is putting together the questionnaire that we are going to finish that night with.
oh, great.
So that's called this virtual open house. So the virtual open house is going to have the questions that we're walking through tonight as a survey for respondents to, give us some feedback so that we can kind of come back around with another live presentation. So this is going to be sort of opening up the story and following up with the virtual open house questionnaire, which is what we're doing. And then we're going to take the next step from there. So just heads up.
That's great.
you'll see this in
That's
your
great.
email.
I will share it with
Probably
everyone
today.
and I'll put it on every social media there is. And I think you will get a lot of people coming out. I also want to let you know that, you know what, this is really perfect timing because we're hiring the consultant to do the harbor plan. And
Yep.
there is open space around the harbor. So that's going to be, think about that too. So that's going to be great. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Mayor.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye. I just add something about the landings. Fully a quarter of the ones that were listed in our last plan have been subsumed by private owners.
Yes, and that's happening. That is certainly happening. Yeah. Okay. Everybody ready for question 8?
Get on.
All right.
Yeah.
So this section of the virtual open house includes questions on goals outlined in Gloucester's 2011 through 2017 open space and recreation plan. Are you interested in reviewing the previous plan's goals and objectives before proceeding? Yes, selecting yes will allow respondents to view a PDF excerpt of section 8 goals and objectives before proceeding to the keep, modify, or discard questions on each goal. And no, I'll skip to the next question. Selecting no will take respondents directly to the keep, modify, or discard questions on each goal. Wait. First, you view a PDF excerpt before proceeding. Okay, thank you. I don't think there's much we can move around about this. Anybody?
That's
We're
fine.
good with this one?
Yep, good.
Okay, so then it says the following are the goals outlined in the city's 2011, or it's 2010 to 2017, I believe. That's right. Okay. 2010 to 2017. Open space and recreation plan for each goal. Please indicate if you would support keeping, discarding, or amending. And keep, modify, or discard. So we're going to say keeping, modifying, or discarding, just in that sentence for consistency.
Did I miss something about the dates on the one before that? You have 2011 to 2017. This one's 2010 to 2017.
Right, no, we just mentioned that. It is 2010 to 2017. It's a 7-year plan.
All right, okay.
So we need to change number 8.
First one gets changed. Okay, sorry.
Just fixed it. Thank you.
Okay, so would you support keeping, modifying, or discarding at the end of question 9? Okay, this comes right out of the plan. I'll read it in, but it does come right out of the plan. So we're not, the language is published. Goal 1, improve stewardship of open space. Keep, this goal is still relevant. Modify, this goal should be modified to include / address, write-in box, or discard, this goal has been sufficiently addressed or is no longer relevant. Goal number 2, improve existing recreation facilities and create new areas to meet defined needs, keep, modify, or discard. Goal number 3, protect and improve gateways to open space, recreation areas, and the water, keep, modify, and discard. Goal number 4, create strategic connections between existing open spaces, keep, modify, discard. Goal 5, strategic preservation of open spaces, keep, modify, discard. Are there any goals that you would recommend to be added in this 2021 OSRP update? No. Yes, I will recommend adding the following goal, and write in box. What are with thoughts? I mean,
That seems good.
Seems
it's,
good.
right,
Yeah.
we're repeating a lot of old material. Okay, number 9, and then optional demographics questions. Tell us about yourself. The following questions help us get a better understanding of who is participating in this virtual community forum. So we're going to call this virtual open house, right? That's what the flyer says.
Yes.
And will help us to plan for outreach for future events to ensure that all voices of Gloucester are heard. All answers are optional and will be kept confidential. How do you identify your race and ethnicity? Select all that apply. Black or African American, Asian, Hispanic, Latinx, white, multiracial, not sure, I prefer not to answer. What is your gender? Male, female, other, please include write-in box, prefer not to answer. What is your age? I don't think I need to read this to you guys. How
Right.
long have you lived in Gloucester? And that also includes, I do not live in Gloucester and I prefer not to answer. And do any members of your household, including yourself, match the following descriptions? Check all that apply. Children, senior, person with a disability, prefer not to answer. And then,
I have a question about the last one.
go ahead, Dan.
Where we say persons with a disability, is it important to distinguish whether it relates to mobility or not?
I'm not sure we can do that.
You can't, yeah.
Okay,
That's for the, and that is the subjective position of the person answering the survey. So they, if somebody says, I have a disabled person in my home, they have PTSD, guess what?
well, that's what I'm getting at. Could we
Yeah.
ask the question, a person with limited mobility rather than disability?
I don't think we can. Go ahead, Dave.
It would be nice to know that, but I think HIPAA prevents us from asking that question or getting
Okay.
that information.
Collecting that information, right? Okay,
thank you.
so the question I want to ask now is question number 1 about how you receive information. That was on this draft here. What's the most effective way to find out Gloucester events? I believe that should land on the directly below, tell us about yourself,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So that because we're in that paragraph, tell us about yourself, we're saying we are going to try to access you again. Let's see.
With so many
Good.
forms of social media, do you want to write in a box for that? Have a write-in for that for Twitter or Facebook or?
You want to write in box? Yeah.
Well, I'm just asking, is there's a lot of different forms now, like of social media, I guess. I'm on not all of them, but
For Mark Rasico, what exactly is this a standard question that MAPC suggests is used? And what's the usable information that comes of it? And I ask this because is it for the purposes of the Open Space Committee, or is it? I'm stumped. I just don't. I'm apparently ignorant of a great deal of programming and events that are related to our open spaces.
Well,
And so I'm just wondering what the utility of this question is, and
Yeah.
but maybe my basis is wrong, and there's a lot going on. I'm just oblivious.
well, this helps us to define where we would be able to put the limited resources that we and you as a committee have to try to get information out to people. If, for instance, what we've been seeing lately is that social media is where we put our efforts. In fact, we buy Facebook ads sometimes to enable us to get information out to people when within a particular geographic area. But if folks say, oh no, they really like, they use the city website for Parks and Recreation, then, well, maybe we don't have to spend the money on the advertisements that we would normally put on Facebook. Or, if for instance, they say, hey, well, I'll use my town as an example. Crazy as it seems, there's something called the Stoughton Yard Sale Facebook page. And it's not about yard sales, it's how everybody gets their information, or there's the Stoughton Mothers Group Facebook page. It's like, okay, we need to hear about these so that we can try to get information out there through them.
Okay. Okay, so thank you. So it's for the purposes of the committee, and it's not for some broader purpose of publicizing events or something like that.
No.
Well, the city may choose to use it later if for instance, when you're doing a big event at one of the parks, this might help you to understand, again, where you should put your limited time and effort and funds.
Okay.
To publicize a big event.
Quick question. What become of Good Morning Gloucester?
It's still happening. And he has a podcast that's like, I know that Pam Toby went on for Community Preservation Committee to talk about the new round of grant funding. So it was a Zoom call. She was there, asked questions. And I think that a lot of people subscribe to get a daily update from him, whether it's static, like the blog posts, or they listen to the podcast, the Gloucester Cast, I think it's called. So, and that, again, you could listen to that, you can watch it, but it's definitely, I think that I would call that social media. But I think that's a way a lot of people get information in
Yes.
Gloucester.
I do.
Yeah.
I think that the mayor will help us.
Yeah.
With that.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have a Parks and Recreation Department website.
So we actually do.
We do.
Part of this is the website was just restructured a year ago in the middle of COVID. We launched a whole new City of Gloucester website. I don't know if you recall this or if you visit the website ever. And so Gloucester, before my time, did have a Parks and Recreation Department. And that was consolidated and merged into the DPW facilities. And this group has somewhat absorbed the planning and program generation aspect of Parks and Recreation, with the idea that the DPW is going to be the operation side. So there is a website that belongs to the Open Space Committee. It has been static. This will obviously, the Open Space Recreation Plan update will be up there. A lot of what was merged from the old website.
Wait, I'm sorry. Are you saying that our committee is the Parks and Recreation website?
Correct.
Okay. Wow. That I find that fascinating. And also,
yeah, there is no department.
well, that's what I'm saying. There's no department.
It's us.
You are the department?
Well, no, I'm not the department. and neither are any of these people. We are not paid people, and this is not, we are not, I just want that language to be clear, that if it's saying that people find out about Gloucester events, recreation opportunities, and park programs, and that me, I don't know who is responsible. Like, I guess when I remember when the parks, there was a Parks and Recreation Department, and it was at the DPW, and there used to be all kinds, I mean, I was a user of that. And so I remember that, but that was not volunteers. Those were city employees. And I just want to push back a little bit to, oh, now we're responsible for a website to be, if that's what we're supposed to do, I just want to be clear about that and say, okay, this is what we're doing. But I think it's a stretch to say, and I know, Noel, you've been on the committee longer than I have. Dan, you were on the committee, but was managing the website for Parks and Recreation Department, was that ever part of our responsibility?
Never.
No, you're not going to manage the website. You do have one though. Every board, committee, and commission in the city has a website.
Okay,
So
and I know that what we have, what's on there is a little bit of stuff about what our roles are, our contact information, and I mean, I'm all for boosting it up and saying, okay, let's add more to it, because it's not great right now. So, but I just want to be clear that to like, call it the committee, but don't call it the Parks and Recreation Department, because that sounds like it's a city department and we are a volunteer committee. And those to me feel like two different things. So
Yeah.
I just want to be clear about that.
With respect to the question, shouldn't we just say, the city's website then?
Yeah, I think it's the city of
Let's get the question right, I think.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah.
And
So,
just,
so the language should be City of Gloucester website.
Yes.
Yes.
Can do that.
there is a City of Gloucester Parks and Recreation. It's a webpage. It's titled Parks and Recreation Facilities. It is not comprehensive, but and it looks to be static. It's not where they're posting events. It's just informational. It lists several parks. It lists the Cape Ann Y, and I'm not sure how one would navigate to it. I found it through a search rather than to navigate it to it.
Yeah.
And there's another for beaches. So I mean, there is some information out there under. I think it's Public Works, then tiered down to Public Services, and then you get in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that too.
Yeah, so as you can see, new website.
Yep.
And the Parks and Recreation Department, after having been dissolved, got sort of was dissipated in multiple different places. So this actually, I think, speaks back to special events permits, which is that is a different board altogether who reviews special events permits or requests for access to the open space. Also in community development, but not a board that I am on.
Yep.
That one is Jill.
Okay.
And that's more, that's a little bit different. Go ahead, Dan.
When we're off of this topic, I have another question for Mark Rusko.
Sure. So yeah, that's it, so we can change that question, City of Gloucester website. It's probably more helpful than trying to point people towards either the Open Space Committee page, but for your reference, the Open Space Committee page is where this material is going to live.
Yep.
Um,
I got that. And I'm all for revamping it. I'm all for contributing to making it better and making it more user friendly. And I'm all for that. So.
But this other piece, Parks and Recreations Facilities, you remember how I was saying, like, there's an operations side of this that still lives with the DPW.
Yep.
That's the operations side, because that involves coordinating with the police and fire and sometimes the harbor master, DPW and things like that. So go ahead, Dan.
Yes, another note from my email that we didn't bump into in the course of the questions. And so for Mark Resico, is there any precedent for or utility in asking a question about recreation that isn't associated with open spaces or parks? Walking on city streets and sidewalks, cycling, skateboarding, running. Are these topics that have come up in open space and recreation plan development before?
You frequently will see bicycling because that's on, city streets, and it's not only a means of accessing the parks and conservation areas, but it is in itself a recreational activity. That's the one that comes to mind, and it has, most frequently come up. I'm trying to think of others. Walking, obviously, yes. And so that has also come up in other plans, and there's been discussion of need for consistent and continuous sidewalk networks, for instance, in the plan. So yes, those I think are the two that mostly come up.
Okay. Would you have, or perhaps Courtney does, a sample question about bicycling or walking that we might look at it on after this call?
Yes, let me talk to Courtney about that. Trying to think in terms of where that might come up. I think we can easily incorporate that into the second survey, which is the more detailed.
Okay.
So let me have that as a goal, that we'll incorporate that into the second survey.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. I hope that, I know that this is primarily going to be about open spaces because that's the first name of our committee. But I would hope to have some sort of reference or marker in the open space and recreation plan that downstream it can look to or point to when we're talking to the DPW director or the city council about cycling and walking, pedestrian accommodations.
Yeah, I think that's very valid.
Thank you.
All right, so I think that we got it. Mark, do you feel like you have good notes?
I've got good notes. What I think I'd like to do is put my amendments together, Adrian, and send them off to you to confer with you and make sure that I haven't missed anything.
Okay.
And then we will get going on putting the rest of the materials together for the first forum. Obviously, we'll send this out once Adrian and I agree that we got everything. We'll send it out to you guys and make sure that we did. And we'll get going on preparing the rest of the materials for this first public forum and open house. And then we'll start the work on thinking about what things have come up today, for instance, that we want to make sure get into the second survey, and we can start talking with you about that, because I believe that would be a core element of the discussion at I believe it's the May regularly scheduled meeting.
Yeah, May 17. May 17.
Yes.
Bring your ideas.
So that's the next scheduled
That's the
committee
next
meeting.
sort of regularly scheduled committee meeting. I will say, there's a pretty good chance we're going to do a debrief afterwards, after the forum, but we won't have a lot of information. We can do a debrief and say, okay, after the April 26th, maybe early in May, and say, how did that go? How do we feel? What do we need to think of? Just to kind of touch on it quickly while it's all fresh in our heads. But then we'll be waiting on survey results until May 10th when it closes. And then Mark and Courtney are going to need probably another 3-4 days just to handle the aggregate data before they turn it over to us. And we should have it in time to openly discuss, review shortly beforehand and openly discuss it May 17. But as part of that sort of postmortem that we'll have on April 26th, we'll set a date and do something like this, quick hour with the single agenda item, and say, what came up for you? What were you thinking about? What are you thinking about for survey questions 2, or survey 2 questions? What do we need to just earmark right now so that we don't lose it while it's still fresh in our head? That will be probably closer to April 26th, shortly after April 26th. So we can just connect quickly. But we'll see Mark back on May 17 probably with
Yes.
a lot of information. Can you all see my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to share this with you. The mayor kind of stole my thunder, but I had her and I took advantage of the moment. So this, Mark and Courtney sent this over last week, at the end of last week, and Greg and I had a chance to look it over. This is the flyer. MAPC produces these, and they're going to produce future marketing material for us to try to get the word out. I will be sending this to all of you. It is a PDF. Please put it on your social media, put it in your email it to your friends, email it to your listserv, your distribution lists, put it everywhere you can see it, print it out, do whatever it is you need to do to try to bring as many people in to the conversation on April 26th as you can. This is the important piece. There is a registration. And then what we're talking about, the virtual open house, as you heard me tell the mayor, that's the questionnaire we've just walked through. So you know what the questions are. This is if you were in an environment, and some of you will remember Courtney talking about this practically a year ago, or maybe 2, I don't know, what is time? Typically in the past, when you had open space plan forums, you would have tables. There would be tables in a big room, and everybody, people who were participants, who were members of the public who were coming to participate in it, they would see a certain presentation that gives you this sort of overview of Gloucester and what the high points are. And then they would have the opportunity to move through these tables, and there'd be these big sheets of paper where you would be writing down your points of interest, right? Or you'd be writing down what it is that you love about a particular place, or you'd be writing down a special name for a place or something like that. So we were capturing that information. And of course, we can't do that now. And so that is the function of this virtual open house questionnaire, is to try to still capture all of that information, but do it in a remote way, of course, because everybody has to evolve. So as you're talking to people about the virtual open house and this first forum, be sure to say to them, you're going to learn a lot of information probably that you didn't know before. That's just straight facts and data about the city of Gloucester in this initial presentation, because it's coming down from MAPC and how the regional planning community views the city, which is a different view. But it's going to trigger you to think differently about how you approach the city and what you are envisioning for planning for the city. So be sure to make sure you actually complete the virtual open house questionnaire. So anybody that is even partially interested in attending, let them know it will be recorded. They will be able to video, watch the video on their own time streaming. There are no excuses for not participating. And even if they don't want to do that, still fill out the questionnaire, because it's so valuable that they are participating. So anyways, this needs to go far and wide, light it on fire. The only thing I don't want you to do, I'll tell you one thing I do not want you to do. I do not want you to run off 100 copies and hand them out at Good Harbor Beach. Do not do that. I will not be happy when I have to clean that up. No one do that, okay? But yes, you can run off a bunch of copies and hand them out, just not in an open space where they will become trash, because that is not the point. Go ahead, Dan.
Adrian, quick question. Do you know if Greg was able to connect with Jennifer Donnelly?
I did not see any email traffic at the end of last week on that. He's on vacation this week,
Okay.
so I don't know. About her data, I think he.
Well,
wait,
about her data and having just done some surveys, and kind of town hall, virtual town halls on the subject of was it active transportation, maybe she would have some input.
You know what? Actually, I may have just spoken too soon. Maybe Greg did send me in an email that he sent to her last week.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this inbox is,
I'll also volunteer to connect with Joey on Good Morning Gloucester, because I do think that is a really big reach, and whether it's a short interview or just like talking about it further, I'm happy to do that. And then with the schools, I think that it is a really important audience, our young people. So whether I'll just talk to the superintendent about it, but also to principals and just see about dispersing it for our students and young people. And I'm still, my question about accessibility for language and also, reading level. Part of me wants to remember that not everybody reads at a college level. In fact, recently, I think I heard that 40% of our country reads at about a 6th grade level. So I just want to be mindful about language that is clear to us, and it may not be clear to all of our citizens, whether they're English language speakers or not, that, there are words and some of the language in here or the whole concept might be off-putting and or not welcoming. So that's one of my goals, is to consider, how do we get this to the Action Shelter or the Sawyer Free Library or the Grace Center? And how do we make sure that folks who are maybe less mainstream can access it too? And I think that's the beauty of the virtual forum and the survey.
And Heidi, I'll take care of like the soccer, Fishermen Youth Soccer and Gloucester Little League, those kind of things. And
Awesome. That's great, Mark.
And Heidi, I think you'd be great on a Gloucester podcast with Joey.
I know,
Right.
that would be great. That would be really fun.
I'll send him, I'll ask him. Yeah. Yeah. Great.
We'll also do all the material you need.
Great.
Okay, so and while we were on this, I did download for you the Open Space and Recreation Plan workbook from the Commonwealth Massachusetts Division of Conservation Services. I'm going to put it in the Google Drive. I know, Mark, you need help, and Noel, you need help getting into that.
I'm in there now.
No, I everything, I just Googled it. It's easy.
It is yay.
Okay,
So
so
I got access to that now.
it comes up if you're in the Open Space and Recreation Committee Google Drive.
Great.
Everybody? Okay, so I'm going to put this just as a reference document, so that this is the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has a prescription for this that they wrote under Governor Duval Patrick, actually in the 90s. And the Recreation Planners Workbook has been updated a couple of times, most recently in 2008. And that's a document that when Division of Conservation Services reviews an open space plan that's been approved by a city and their city council, what they're comparing it against is the material in the workbook. So you have this pretty clear outline of what the product is and what they're expecting to see. And from that outline, of course, over the last 20 or 30 years, planners, people who do this, Mark probably has done 30 of these, there's a process, right? And it's fairly well oriented. And so if you feel like you're not clear on what the next steps are, how long the process is, what the role of what the city is going to do versus what MAPC is going to do versus what the committee is going to do, we can definitely have that conversation. But let me know if it's not clear. So this, and I will tell you, this workbook will put you to sleep every night for a full month. Okay. And so you don't have to
Skim it.
Yeah, but there
Tell us
are
what to do.
there are some good nuggets in there that kind of help you get your head around like what's happening next, what's the process, how do we navigate this. And so, let me know again if you have questions about it, or if as a group you want to go over it, we should add it as an agenda item and we can talk about it a little bit more May 17, or maybe after the debrief on April 26th. Okay.
I agree with Adrian that it's a very long, very dense document. It is currently actually being updated now
Uh-oh.
by the folks at Division of Conservation Services.
We gotta get this done fast.
We had a meeting with them within the last week to provide them a lot of input from committees that we have interacted with over the last several years and what issues were with the workbook. And yeah, it's a very dense document. I wouldn't recommend it for an exciting read, but it does have some very good examples in there. And the last point related to that,
I can send it to anyone who wants it. Email.
Drive, yeah, it's in the drive.
and the other point that I would make is, as Adrian said, that the state does review the plan as it's been prepared by a municipality. And we send it off to the state as a draft. And inevitably, there will always be between 6 and 12 items that they would like updated, fixed, amended. We didn't go into enough detail on such and such. And that happens after we do a draft and before it becomes finalized. And then we make those changes and it becomes the final official plan. But it's expect that they will have a couple of questions with the draft, I guess is my major.
I actually found that those letters corresponding to the last plan, you could see where there was a few things rejected or needed amending. And that's all on the open space website, Heidi. I clicked open everything. I spent days clicking and reading everything I could in there.
Yeah.
It's amazing what's in there,
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of work went into that last time.
Yeah,
So,
it is a lot of work. Yep.
so I mean, if we were the group that before me and some members still here did a great job on the last one. I mean, we kind of following the same rules and updating things. I mean, we're not starting from scratch, right?
Nope.
The city didn't change that much. There'll be things coming and going a little bit, but the survey, how people perceive it all, I think is what's gonna, there's a new group of people are in town and something like that perceive things differently.
And even COVID, I would say living through a pandemic might
I think that's going to be
change
huge.
how people how people view open space and recreation.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, to the mayor talk, we talked earlier about this Coppins Beach case, but then if you look at the back shore and the lots from the back shore lots that the Essex County Greenbelt own, now they're adjacent to the city lots. So sort of that whole sort of stretch right there is all accessible. And yet then people walk left and right through the title areas of people's property. Right. So here's a case where it's all accessible. It's a good story. Like nothing will ever be blocked off in that area. But once they get down, they can walk. People walk along the title areas. They're in people's property, kind of, because then a lot of times they walk back up through someone's property to get back on the sidewalk or something. But no one seems to mind too much with it.
I mean, they can pass and repass, right? But yeah, you're absolutely right. That is a good story. I mean, that whole of the back shore is always going to be available for public use because the city of Gloucester has acquired parcels that provide the direct access to the tidelands. Not that it's very easy to navigate on foot, but you can. And then if you are, once you're down there, you're down there. You can do it.
Yeah, and there was an initiative from the Save Our Shores group that we sort of fumbled and kind of stalled out, but it was reaching out to all the other property owners to say, hey, do you want to sort of join and make this Essex County Greenbelt space even longer, make the whole back shore? And that's a difficult thing to sort of, you're asking someone to sort of deed their little lot across the street,
Mhm.
across, you know, to the Essex County Greenbelt or something. So that was a bigger thing, never really took off the ground. But
All right, everybody. Oh, Noelle, you have something?
Well, I just want to suggest that we have an inventory meeting next week.
yes, I was going to ask that too.
So I'm not going to be in the office until April 6th.
Okay.
I'm away.
Oh, when?
Well-
Yeah. Okay. When do
Well-
you travel?
Can I have just half an hour with you to go over my papers and
Yeah, I mean, we
Thoughts
can do a remote. We can definitely do a remote. If you
Um,
want.
remote's no good because of the, you know, it just doesn't work.
Okay. Oof.
I mean, I feel very strongly that we have to be able to sectionalize the inventory according to suitable maps.
Okay, so right now I am in the office on Tuesday and Thursday from 4 to 6 and on Sundays.
On Sundays,
I work every day.
right, right, this Sunday, what's the time on Sunday?
Hold on, let's see. I will probably be down there by 11 a.m. And then, yeah, anytime you want to come in the afternoon.
Can I make a definite date?
Yeah, you want a date?
Yep, let's have,
Sunday, March 28th?
yep. 2 o'clock, is that okay with you, Mark?
2 p.m.?
Right now it is.
Okay. Yeah, 2 p.m., City Hall Annex.
Great,
It will be all locked up, so I'll be outside waiting for you and then I'll let you in.
okay.
Yeah.
2 o'clock.
All righty, that sounds
Thank
good.
you.
It's life.
Yep.
Okay, well, if there is no other matters before us, I just want to reiterate, thank you for meeting again on a shorter notice. This was productive and also educational. I feel like I learned a lot, and also we're becoming more cohesive as a group, and I think that's always worthwhile. So, and time well spent. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
Second,
Second.
and I'll do a roll call. Member Morris,
Yes.
Member Mann,
Here.
Member Poulin,
Okay.
Member Sargent,
Yes.
and Member Wakeman, yes.
Thanks, Mark, for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you all
Yeah.
for meeting. This was very, very, very helpful. So as I said, I'll get materials to Adrian and we'll make sure we get it all on paper.
Yeah.
Great.
It was a treat to have the mayor join us for a while too. That
Certainly
really
was.
nice.
He
Yeah.
watches a lot
Wow,
of.
surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I'm just gonna say too, she mentioned Liam Anastasia Murphy is a young person who is interested in joining our group, and I really hope that he does. But we do still have 2 vacancies, so if you know anybody, or if you want to have somebody, you know, express their interest or come join us, then I think the more the merrier. So.
All right,
Okay,
everyone. Have a
great.
good night.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much, Adrian. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Take
Thank
care.
you, Mark. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I leave.